Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Welcome to the August 17th meeting of the Rotary Club of Gainesville. At this time, we're going to ask Pete and Walter to please come forward.
Fellow Rotarians, today is National Massachusetts Day. So if you'll remember that Elizabeth Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks, and when the job was neatly done, she gave her father 41, all from Massachusetts, celebrating Massachusetts Day. So would you join me in singing My Country 'Tis of Thee? My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. Join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Pete. Kevin Thorpe, are you able to be with us today?
Yes, I'm here.
Wonderful, thank you. If you would please lead us in our prayer.
May we pray. Lord, we are forever grateful for this day. It is one that we have never seen before, and when it is past, we will never see again. Thank you for all that this day means and all that you will accomplish in this day. We do pray for hurting and grieving families, that you would add comfort to them. We pray for the citizens of Haiti, that you would strengthen them through this most difficult process. We thank you in advance for what today's program will mean. This subject matter will bring encouragement to each of us, and for that we are thankful and we are excited. It is for your sake and for your glory we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Kevin. At this time, we would like to have introductions of guests and guests of Rotarians, members visiting from other clubs.
Fellow Rotarians, I'm Margaret Combs. My two guests today are my daughter and granddaughter, Dana Nimini and Marcia Nimini. They had a little work to do a little later, so I brought them along to help out.
Welcome.
I'm Davis Rembert, proud to introduce Judy Brill Lang Rembert. Her brother's a member of this club, Roger. Her daddy was a member for a long time. So welcome.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. I'd like to introduce Sandra Herrera. Hopefully I said that right. She is the executive assistant to our president and CEO of the chamber, Eric Coday.
And the voice from off camera, we have Michael Pellet with us today. Say hello to Michael, everybody.
All right, well, welcome. Glad to have you with us. We're going to move into announcements. I have a couple of announcements, which I'll be very brief. The first is we have found, now that we're here at the CADE, we really have a need for some volunteers who would help us with setting up and taking down tablecloths. It includes washing tablecloths, which I got an amazing appreciation for all that Wes and Marcia have been doing for us. It's very hard to fold a round tablecloth. So I'm just going to tell you. But if you would think about that, if that's a way you can serve to come a little early and stay a little bit, let David or I know after the meeting, if you could, please. A couple of fellowship opportunities. We're going to be doing a tour of the Alachua County Library District on August 31st at 6 p.m. And then on September 8th, we're going to be filling backpacks for Catholic Charities. Look for an email regarding this, and we're hope that you're able to help out. At this time, we have a couple of other Rotarians with announcements. Matthew, you want to talk about service above self?
Thank you, Melanie. So as past president, one of the responsibilities, or I truly believe honor, that you have is to lead the effort to recognize the annual service above self. So we are now receiving nominations for the 2021 ET and VAM York Service Above Self. So those, you'll have an email that comes out at 1:30 today, and it will have attached the full parameters, guidelines, and nomination form that can be sent back to me in hand or email. That's included by October 1st. But just so those that may or may not know, this is our club's recognition and honoring the benefactors, ET and VAM York. They want to recognize a community member, Rotarian or not, for their extreme display of service above self. So any questions, you can contact me directly, but that'll be coming out via email. Remember, October 1st deadline to turn those submissions in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. Greg, is Greg here with us today? I think you wanted to talk about RLI? Okay.
Thanks, Melanie. Sorry, just walked in. So I'm giving you an update on the Rotary Leadership Institute. They've changed the date on that. I think they're kind of waiting to see how things play out here and to have a live event. It's still planning on being a live event, Saturday, October 16th. I'm sure the club will be sending something out to everyone. Again, this is for the Leadership Institute that Rotary puts on for our district, and it's excellent, and I hope you can attend. And again, I encourage you to think about, if you want to get the most out of your Rotary experience, this is one of the ways to do that. So I highly encourage it. There is a $100 registration fee. If you're one of the 5 first people that sign up, we have in our budget for this year to pay for 5 of those. So if you sign up early, you're more likely to get the refund of your registration. And it's going to be held in Daytona State College, Flagler Palm Coast campus. And there's details on that information, but that's the basics of it. So I hope you can go. I'm planning on attending and hope some of y'all can join me. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And Helen, you want to give us an update on our Underoo project?
Operation Underwear. We have 2,362 undies. So 2,500 would be really nice. So this is your last touch. This is the last day that we are going to campaign for this. And thank you so much for all that y'all have done, because they're going to a good place. Thank you.
And thank you all for spearheading this for us and all your hard work. Okay, so at this time, we're going to turn the program over to President David.
I just kind of caught Melanie off guard here and told her not to go anywhere, because Melanie, when you choose a sergeant at arms, it's something, there are just a handful of positions I've learned that the president of the Rotary Club of Gainesville gets to appoint, and sergeant at arms is one of those. And I did that very carefully, and I think everyone will agree after, yes, this is our 7th week, that I made a good selection. Melanie is, I kind of prepared a little bit here, Melanie, pardon me, but her organization, her reliability, and just her kind of well-natured, pleasant demeanor that she conducts herself has just made her a just ideal person up here. And for her to step in and do the additional things she's doing, like volunteering to take the tablecloths home and I guess probably with Ray's help, wash them and fold them, get them back here. Marcia and Wesley have been doing that all year, but it's time to let some other folks share some of that load, and Melanie volunteered to do that. Melanie, this is something that I'm kind of making this part of my year here is our wonderful theme of serve to change lives is something I'm going to continue reminding all of us that serving to change lives can be what may just come natural to you just when you're called to do something or when someone asks you to do something. Melanie, just really you embody that theme, and I just thank you so much for all that you do for our club. Okay, next thing I want to do real quickly, I've got a couple of kind of points of business. I'm going to give Margaret as much time as possible because I know Margaret, and she's so well prepared, and we're going to have an awesome presentation today. But first, I want to recognize our new Rotarians. If you're new, please stand up. Kim, this is the first time I finally got to meet you. Sheeb, John, Tim, guys, stand up. This is actually, and Charity. Okay, so I'm doing this. This is kind of it's a practical matter because these new Rotarians are attending our luncheons, and so I think they deserve some face name recognition. So let's really try to embrace these folks. These are Rotarians that are they are going to be engaged. They're going to be great members of our club. So welcome them, introduce yourselves to them. I'm so glad to have you guys here, Charity. Thanks, guys. Okay, this is the part, this is the reason that I wore my glasses up here. We've got kind of a point of business. And before I begin, I'll tell you that this is about the Rotary Clubs of Gainesville Foundation. Okay, the foundation is an entity separate, but certainly related to our club. The foundation is made up of, well, the board is made up of representatives from our club and also from the other Gainesville Rotary clubs. And so each year we nominate 7 members of our club to serve on that board. There are a few other members who are serving as well in different offices, but the following 7 members, Jay Nordquist, who will be the feast master, he and I have come up with this list. And so I'm going to read this list of folks. If you're here, please stand up, and we're going to have a vote by acclamation, okay? Rusty Doherty, Eric Godet, Helen Gilstrom, Dwight McKee, Seafood Man, Linda Reinhardt, Jason Shank, and Melanie Shore. Okay, all those in favor of these nominees serving on the Rotary Clubs of Foundation Board for the current Rotary year, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Good. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, and now I'm going to ask my good friend Eric Godet to come up and introduce today's wonderful program.
Thank you, President David. So it is with great pleasure that I get to introduce one of our very own that we love and has done so much in this community. Yes, I am talking about the Margaret Combs. Margaret is a retired CEO of several businesses, owning her own marketing and PR company for 14 years, serving major clients on 3 continents. Then as an executive in the emerging cable television industry. Did you guys know that? She was also tapped to run the industry's Marketing and Development Association. And years later, she was president of Cable Television Network, after which she retired for the first time and consulted in the US and Europe as they developed their cable industry. She is a mother and a grandmother. And after a move south for her husband's health and consulting role, led her to become the CEO of a young intellectual property and manufacturing company. This is all here in Gainesville, Florida. This only begins to scratch the surface of our very own Margaret Combs. Please give a Rotary welcome to the Margaret Combs. Come on, Margaret.
That was a bit much, Eric, but that's okay. This is a day that I have a lot of mixed feelings about the subject that literally took hold of me a few years ago. It was April of 2017. We had house guests and we were having dinner on the lanai and the telephone rang. Sometimes they just sound louder and more important than others. And I ran and grabbed it, and before I could say hello, I heard a deep male voice at the other end say, "I'm sitting here with my rifle in my lap. Tell me why I shouldn't use it." Well, you know, it's kind of amazing how things that you've learned, it seems like centuries ago, under stress will suddenly come back to you. And I remembered from suicide prevention training I'd had many years before, you don't give in to them. You don't start telling them why they shouldn't, because that just helps them argue with you and convince themselves they should. So I said, "Tell me why you haven't used it already." The whole time I'm praying under my... And it got quiet. And then in a few seconds, we were able to have a conversation. This man was the son of a dear friend. He was a military physician. He was an emergency physician. He had gone through all of his residencies and so forth and joined the Air Force and gone to Iraq. Now, many of you who are here were here in 2006. And I joined this club that year, as did David and some others. And Malcolm King put us into a group and they said, "You all have to do a project." And we kind of got together. Well, I had gotten a call from this man's father saying they have tourniquets in Iraq that are from the Vietnam War, and every time they try and use them, they break, and they desperately need the new high-tech tourniquets. And sometimes people say to me, "Well, why don't they use their belt?" Well, with their armor and so forth, they could never get to their belt. And so we'd been given this charge to have a project. Our group got together and voted on the tourniquet project, that this particular officer who had called me that day years before had called and asked that our Rotary Club consider. So as David can tell you, we had a meeting and we put together, our little group of new members put together a Texas Hold'em tournament. Now that's when Texas Hold'em was really a big deal. And I thought it was ironic at the end of the meeting when we had raised enough to buy dozens and dozens of these very expensive high-tech tourniquets. I thought it was ironic that the people who had helped us make all this money, somebody had gotten the residents and the med students from UF to come to the tournament. And we did. We raised enough to buy a good number of the tourniquets, which were shipped to Iraq. And a couple of months later, we got a thank you, but this man had turned to Rotary knowing that Rotary could help. And he never forgot it, nor did I. And this doctor, this was the doctor who now in 2007, that's what, 11 years later, was talking to me about committing suicide. what had happened in the meantime. He had been in Iraq running forward aid stations. That was kind of like the MASH units of Vietnam and Korea, where they patched them up enough so that they could live long enough to get them to a hospital that would really care for them. He had told me that they saw an average of 68 patients a day, and they could be anything from one of our soldiers to one of the enemy's soldier to a child who got caught in an IED explosion. And later he told me that in his night terrors, he would see endless rows of stretchers with patients on them. It was a horrible thing to live through. But after his first call, I realized I had to learn what was going on in his brain. I had been told by his parents that, and when he came back, that he was a mess. Now, he had spent 4 years in Iraq and then did a fellowship in hyperbaric medicine and became the underwater medical specialist for the Navy SEALs. And God only knows where he was for those years. But when he came back, he was a disaster. And then the military and the VA threw everything they could at him. But in those days, they didn't really know much more than to give them the same treatment they'd give someone with a mental illness. In fact, he was locked in a psych ward in a Navy hospital in Virginia, and that certainly was not a positive part of it. But let me tell you about the guys and gals, and there are gals, that have come back from those Middle Eastern wars. A little over 3 million have served, have been deployed. In 2015, the VA said 18% of them came back with PTSD. Well, there are other statistics from other places that go as high as between 20 and 30%. We probably will never know because there are many who frankly don't want anybody to know, but they suffer in silence. I felt like I had to find something to help him. So from the moment of that call, I started searching. You know, we're fortunate. We live here in a community that has one of the biggest VA centers, and that tends to bring around other services and so forth. And so I was determined that I was going to find a way to help him, and I started studying and reading and literally committed myself to this. And each week I would have new programs to present to him because he was living with his widowed mother alone in a town where there were no services, and we invited him to come and live with us. And one day I said, you know, I've found this equine therapy program in Archer, which is not far from where we live. And I think that might be just what you need. And he said, oh, I'd love to work with horses. That would be great. So very quickly, we made the decision, he made the decision to come. He got his airline tickets and everything. He talked with the executive director of HOPE, which is the equine therapy program in Archer, which if you ever have a chance to go out, it's a beautiful, beautiful place, and lots of good things are done there. And he was to be here on Friday. I was to pick him up at the airport. And on Thursday night, his mother called me and said, John has gone into a deep depression. I don't think he'll be able to come tomorrow. And I was devastated, but optimist. I kept hoping that he would. Saturday morning, they found him in the front yard. John had become a statistic. He'd become one of about 7,300 military suicides each year. You realize how much more that is than those who actually died in country? They're coming here, they're suffering longer, and then we're losing them. After the funeral, which was, I don't know if any of you have ever been to the military funeral in Salisbury, North Carolina, but it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. And the funeral was there. And there we learned that John had resuscitated 27 men that had been pronounced dead. And he had been given so many awards, and the highest award a military medical person can be given. And yet he did not see the value of what he had brought. But I came back from North Carolina. I don't know. I tend to do what is put in front of me. And I sat down at my computer and I kept thinking about what might have been had he actually come, had he gone through the equine therapy program, had he gotten better, what might have been. And I started writing, absolutely no plan, nothing. And I'd write until my mind would be empty, and I'd go sit down on the lanai and my mind would fill up again, and I'd write again. And I thought, maybe this is a good story for young people, because maybe it'll help them to understand what this condition really is. So I told the story from the mind of the horse, the equine therapy horse. And that was Darby, the horse from Hope, because Hope is horses helping people. And it was a short story, and I had 4 kids from Williston who were my reading panel. They were wonderful, and they loved it, and I had their comments, and they were just terrific. They were all teenage girls. Of course, girls love horses. And then one day I was at Rotary when we were still over at the Wyndham, and the retired director of the VA said to me, I have some umbrage for you. And I'm going, umbrage? Where did that word come from? And he said, that book was not a children's book. I said, really? Okay. And that was the beginning. And many of you probably know Tom, used to be in this club. And then people kept saying to me, well, what happened after the end of the book, the end of the story? What happened next? Well, fortunately, John had told me a lot about what he wanted to do. He had said, I will never practice medicine again, but I want to get an MBA. And he'd inherited a farm from his father. He said, and I want to open a treatment program at the farm. So that's the next story. And in the process, I had to learn about every treatment program that's out there. And I was grateful to have to do that. And I actually found one later. After my book was at the publisher, I found one that had been developed by a Navy SEAL starting in 2012. And has now grown to 8 facilities across the country. And their program is called Warrior Path. And the Navy SEAL had several physicians who worked with him. And Warrior Path is an 18-month curriculum that the textbook's that big. Now, how do you get a bunch of vets in their late 30s and early 40s to do this? Well, first of all, they come together for a week. And that week, they spend literally doing things, many of which were and I learned something I didn't know, which is many. The warriors, Indian warriors, when they would go off to war, were not allowed to come back into their villages until they had literally spent time doing a number of I guess you'd call them items, doing a number of things that would help them to shed the feelings that they had had in battle. And then after they had done that, and they were able to be members of families again and so forth, they would be allowed back in the village. Well, that was the foundation. And that first week, that's what these folks do. And there are 8 of those across the country. And one of the things that's so wonderful about them is that recently the Bernie Marcus Foundation did a research project of all of the, excuse me, all of the treatment programs in the United States for PTSD. And the Warrior Path program just walked away with it, with over 65% of the participants having long-term positive lives that they were able to live because of what they had been through. So one of the things that I learned in all of this research, well, actually 5 of them, is that there are at least 5 factors that are essential, and most of them are in the Warrior Path program. Number 1, the worst thing in the world for someone suffering with PTSD is isolation. It's like poison. Thank you. They must not, and they want to be left alone. Thank you. So isolation is a no-no, and I'll tell you what we can do about that in a minute. The second thing is they've got to have some structure. You know, in the military, everything is structured. You get up, you do this, you do this, you do this. You have a structure the day you're discharged. If you have not been well enough to look forward and develop your own, you have no structure. And it's then leaving them alone to do nothing. So they have to have a structure, and someone has to help them develop it. And then there's the family issue, which can be a positive or a negative. The need for a supportive family is key. And yet so many families, when their sons and daughters or husbands and wives came back, they were different people and they didn't know how to react. I was at a meeting in 2019 in Philadelphia. It was a book marketing group, and the president of the group came over and said, I need you to come with me. And I said, well, why? He said, well, come on. So he was the president of the group, so I went. And on the way, he said, one of our participants has a son who just came back with PTSD, and I think you need to talk to him. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not sure I'm equipped or qualified to do this, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. So I went over and I was introduced to a professor of leadership from Purdue University. And I sat down with him, and the first words out of his mouth were, my son is a graduate of the University of Michigan, and he's an extraordinary young man. And right now, he's waiting on tables at the Waffle House. Well, that said to me that we had a problem, and the problem wasn't necessarily the son. The problem was the father. So we talked for a while, and the last thing I said to him is, you don't need to be his judge. You need to be his supportive parent. Funny, you would have thought that would have been the end of a relationship, but we've carried that relationship on, and I've been able to send information and things to them to be of help. And things are going along pretty well. And for that, I'm grateful. But that supportive family, we see so many vets on the street, and they're on the street because their families didn't understand. Now, many of the programs that are there for treatment have time set aside and have retreats for families. And I can't encourage them enough to do it. It's a very important thing. The other thing that every veteran needs to have, be they one that has suffered PTSD or not, is they need a purpose. We all need a purpose, a reason to get up every morning. And following the title of Admiral William McRaven's book, Make Our Bed. I would encourage you to look at that book because it not only talks about structure, but it talks about purpose. And the book's name is Make Your Bed. It's a good thing to remember. So that purpose is critical. And then finally, and one that people often forget, is gratitude. The issue, other issues really are to the person, teaching the person who is ill to be grateful for something. I don't care what it is that they find to be grateful for, is a very positive move. Gratitude is one of the greatest parts of our personalities that we can give to others, and is something that anyone who has suffered needs to find something to be grateful for. Now I'm not going to let you all out of here without asking you to be Rotarians. Every one of you, if you think about your friends, people you know, people who know people, every one of you somewhere in your sphere of influence, there's someone who's a veteran, someone who's probably been a post 9/11 veteran. When have you talked to them? Do you sit down and have talks with your veteran friends? You know, we don't have those talks anymore like we used to. We don't just say, hey, let's go have a cup of coffee and sit and chat. Because every veteran wants somebody to talk to, but the ones with PTSD won't reach out for somebody. So we need to reach out for them. So as a good Rotarian who serves, I'd suggest you think hard. Ask your friends, do they know anyone that does suffer from PTSD? Do they know anyone they think might? Do they know anyone who's come back and kind of isolated themselves? Search them out, find them. You know, the old thing of saying thank you for your service is all very well and good. There's only one problem. We throw it off as a throwaway. Many of you know my husband, John, who was retired military. John used to, when he saw somebody in uniform or somebody that had on a hat with an insignia or a jacket, he'd go up to him and he'd say, where'd you serve? And they'd answer. He'd say, well, what'd you do there? And they'd answer, and he'd have a short conversation, and they knew he was interested. And then he'd say, I really appreciate what you did for all of us. And I learned a lot watching that, because it let the veteran and the person, whether they had PTSD or not, it let them know that somebody cared. Now, what Dana has handed out to everybody is a little booklet that I produced. It's on my website and can be downloaded, but it basically, as I said, I studied for about 4 years to find the best treatment programs, and it lists those, and it lists how to reach someone, and it lists where you can go on and learn about it. And if you know somebody, or you know somebody who might need some help, give that book to them. Give the little booklet. Show them where they can get the information. Tell them how to look up any of the services that are listed there. They are all excellent services. All of them are non-clinical, except the ones from Wounded Warrior Project, which I would call semi-clinical, and they are all headed at 4 major universities. But it's something you can do if you know someone, or if you think you know someone. Don't let this drop. Consider it a responsibility, because look at all they did for us. I have a good friend that many of you may know. His name is Perry Claussen. Perry worked with me a lot over the last couple of years, and we've met and we've talked, and I've learned. And Perry suffers from PTSD. He was his Humvee was hit when he was a colonel in Iraq, and he had many physical wounds, but the PTSD will always remain. He spent 4 years with Wounded Warrior Project. And so I said, Perry, notice the front of the book, the man walking out of the darkness into the light. That's what we hope to see happen. I said, Perry, talk to them a little bit. And if you go on our YouTube channel, you'll see, I think, 8 videos that he made. But we're going to play a few of them, a couple of them now.
Well, my name's Perry, and I started my journey in the military when I reported to West Point in July of 1976. My military career ended when I was medically retired in August of 2009 after being injured in an IED explosion in Iraq, and I spent 4.5 years in the Wounded Warrior program. But my journey didn't end there. It still continues today. Like many of my fellow veterans and still serving members, I suffer from what's known as post-traumatic stress disorder, although I really don't like that term. It's not so much a disorder as a response to stimulus in your life around you, caused by what you either saw or underwent while you were on your military journey. Not all of us have outward signs of PTSD. Some people are affected by what they saw more so than what they experienced. But as we've gone through that journey, none of us need to go through it alone. So we're going to go for a little walk here and kind of talk about what's available to help you and how you might cope better with what you're experiencing. So why don't you follow me as we go down this path together. I want to take a moment and sit down and read you all a poem about PTSD written by my good friend Margaret Combs. Margaret titled this, A Warrior's Journey. I cannot wait and I cannot see what all the war has done to me. I was not hit or bombed or wounded, but I feel as if my brain is doomed. They say that I've been traumatized, a wound that cannot be seen by eyes, a scar that changes reality. My life no longer belongs to me. How do I heal this scar not seen? How do I stop these terrible dreams? I never want to sleep anymore or close my eyes and see horrors of war. Do I have to go on and live this way? Or can I find peace in a cold dirt grave? I'm living here in between life and death. I have no life, but I still have breath. Is this what God wants for me? Is this all there ever will be? Is all hope gone, never to return? Or can I survive, change, and learn? Help me, God, to find a way to learn to live another day, to recapture happiness and joy, and to reject the darkness of the war. Can someone help me a life to find and to overcome this awful kind? I want to learn to brush away the dreams, to calm my mind of tortured scenes. Oh, to live a life beyond the pain and ugliness of a damaged brain. To learn to love, to care and work, to live with joy when no pain can lurk. I found some help from other guys. They've all been here, it's in their eyes. They've learned a way to reach the scars. It's not easy. The work is hard. Now I am whole. I am free. I am finally more like me. I had trauma in my brain. I've learned to deal and learned to cope. I have friends and love And finally, once again, hope. Well, my name's Perry, and I started my journey in the military when I reported to West Point in July of 1976.
Are there any questions? I think it's probably self-explanatory. Thank you.
Wow. Fantastic. Just so neat that we have someone like that in our club. I mean, Margaret, that was so genuine and so neat to see Perry up there again, hear Perry's voice. Sorry, that just kind of got me a little bit. I do remember the tourniquet project. Margaret and I were, I've said this to a few of you, we were pledge brothers or pledge sisters at the same time. Jason was in our pledge class, and for some reason I got talked into making the announcement to what was then about 200 people, and it was a little bit out of my league, but I remember saying that, keeping it in the theme of what we were doing, I said, I'm just a foot soldier here. It's Margaret Combs is the general of this project. And, you know, that's the authenticity with her book and what she's doing. She's been given to this for a long time. So Margaret, thank you so much for your presentation and for your work that you're doing. And Margaret, I have for you our speaker's gift. Why don't you come up here and take this from me? And as a Rotarian, you could recite this probably better than I could, our four-way test, which, as you know, we ask, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you, Margaret. Okay, guys, I cannot wait to see everybody back here next Tuesday. Have a great week. Oh, you know what? You know what I need to do? Pardon me. I need to draw the ticket. Excuse me. Yeah, that was close. Okay, yeah, I don't see the bell. There it is. Okay, ticket number is the reinstituted 50-50 drawing for the Rotary Reading Safari. The last three digits, 643. 643. Going once. Okay, there it is. Jacob Atim.